It came like a bolt from the blue for me when I heard that he's been detained. And I almost broke down. You are directly locking horns with the top two people of the country. So it's not something that can be taken easily. He just gets 2 hours to meet me. And I think both of us portray a very strong front. 12 days of no information about somebody is quite scary. Character assassination of Sonam started about a year ago. Anti-national Pakistani agent. The baseless accusations were just used by trollers and mass media trollers like Arnab Goswami to create a smoke screen to character assassinate whatever the trollers were spreading. Despite that having been fact-checked and denied, still appears in detention order.
A person who has made solar homes for Jawans, a person who has invented ice stupas to save your environment, is being called an anti-national.
Both Sonam and I have a lot of opportunities to shift to any country in the world. We chose to be in India, to uplift this great nation. He was the poster boy. The whole thing changed when he started becoming vocal about rights of the citizens of Ladakh. And there were always rumors that they are planning to detain me.
It's been 2 months since the arrest of climate activist Sonam Wangchuk. In the week of his arrest and the violence that had taken place for demanding statehood and sixth schedule, several videos were propagated to paint him as an anti-national. But none of these so-called video proofs have made it to the actual detention order that tries to justify his arrest under the National Security Act. But there are other videos that find mention in the detention order. What are these videos, and have they been misconstrued, mistranslated, or misrepresented, like all the videos that were popularized on social media were? To answer that, we are joined by Dr. Gitanjali J. Angmo, educator and wife of Sonam Wangchuk. Ma'am, welcome to the Quint's newsroom and welcome to my show Badi Badi Baatein.
Thank you for inviting me.
We will come to the legalities of Mr. Wangchuk's arrest and the seemingly flimsy grounds of it in a bit. It's been 2 months since he has been arrested. First and foremost, how are you holding up?
Good, strong. There are ups and downs, but I have in these 2 months learned that good is more than evil in this world. This world is existing because no matter what we see as a lot of evil or wrong, but at every step I have been helped and guided by good people as well. So that's a huge, encouragement to continue the fight.
He's currently lodged in the Jodhpur Central Jail and you get to meet him twice a week for an hour. What can you tell us about the time that you get? What do you talk about in the hour that you get to talk?
So it's not easy to fly to Jodhpur, especially if I had been in Leh. It's expensive and time consuming, especially when there is this case to be seen, Hayal to be handled, and there have been relentless queries and summons from the IT department, on various aspects. But I go and because he just gets 2 hours to meet me, and he has 2 hours which he can meet his lawyers. So I do not miss ever to not see him. So we ask about how each one is doing, and I think both of us portray a very strong front. He then asks about some basic things that he wants, which I get him next time. And I think of what books could be, motivating, encouraging, uplifting, which I take for him. or that would help him understand the situation that is going around in terms of Ladakh's sixth schedule and all of that. And then he talks about the things that he does in the prison, like he talks to the kids, he talks to the staff on parenting. So I try to take everything that he wants. So first he wanted encyclopedia, and then he wanted books on architecture, earth architecture, because he found the clay interesting. So then he wanted, I took for him Panchatantra and Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Prophet. In a way, the only window he has to the external world, because he was saying that though he gets newspapers and every day, but any news that is related to him is cut out. So he says, from the cutout, I know I must have been mentioned here today.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
So they hand him a newspaper to read, and any part that is about him is cut out.
Cut out. Yeah.
Wow.
Last time I gave him this book called Tales of Prison Life by Sri Aurobindo. Because Sri Aurobindo, who's considered to be the tallest spiritual figure of the 20th century, was detained by the British. He has a very humorous take and a very spiritual take of his 1 year inside jail. So both of us are taking it extremely positively, one day at a time, trying to become better human beings in the process. As you know, Sri Aurobindo in 1 year of jail experienced the divine. So he had a realization. So I was joking to him, because he's also Sonam is a Vipassana practitioner. Both of us are. So I told him, you are going to this imprisonment. Promise me one thing, you will come out enlightened being. So use your time for that. Yeah, so that's how we keep our spirits up. And he is very cognizant of the fact what I'm going through, single-handedly in Delhi, and I'm aware of and cognizant of what he is going through, because being alone and is not a very easy thing, especially a mind that is so full of ideas and wants to do things. For 10 days, there was no information. And though they had said that he was in Jodhpur, but there was already such a trust deficit that had happened by then, that I did not even trust that he would be in Jodhpur, because they had said after he reaches there, we will call you and speak to you, but there was no call. They were not taking my calls. So initially it was a very scary period till 6th of October, and the first time when I met him on 7th, 12 days of no information about somebody is quite scary. Otherwise, if you're traveling abroad or you don't speak is another matter, And in the meantime, what was happening was some of our staff had been detained in play. And they were physically and mentally being tortured. And one of them was even beaten up. So with that news coming in, I had these questions that how must they be treating Sonam? And there were always rumors that they are planning to detain me also, because there were a lot of CRPF police deployed outside our campus. And the way I had to kind of almost smuggle myself out incognito was also, those 3 weeks were very scary, and because you just don't know what they were doing. And even as we speak, yesterday, they have arrested a few people in Ladakh. And it's such a mockery of the judicial inquiry that's going on, that how can a true judicial inquiry happen if people are, kept under so much of fear that anybody is being arrested.
You were informed over WhatsApp and a phone call by the Leh police when he was arrested. What can you tell us about what you felt when you realized for the first time that he's been taken away?
So though he had been saying 2-3 weeks prior to that they are planning this, but they have been doing this for the last 1 year now, There's always a rumor that there's an FIR going to be against Sonam and all of that. So we didn't really take it that seriously that they will do it. So it came like a bolt from the blue for me when I heard that he's been detained. And it was extremely sad, and I almost broke down, And then I just got my act together, and very soon, because that entire evening I kept waiting that they from Jodhpur they would call me at 7:30 in the evening, and 8:30, 9:30 night, a whole night I was up expecting the call. So it was quite bad because it was it's not some common adversary in this case. It is the Ministry of Home Affairs. You are directly locking horns with the top two people of the country. So it's not something that can be taken easily. But I must say that very soon, this fear and all of this translated, in my case, into a lot of resolution, resoluteness. Also, maybe because I'm trained as a black belt in karate.
Oh, yes, you are.
And I think I think that's how it helps, maybe, that the moment you find yourself under attack, you just gear up for the sparring. So that's what I did. Not in this case, not physically, but psychologically.
You spoke about the surveillance that you have been under ever since his arrest, and even before that. You wrote to the president about it. What can you tell us about what kind of surveillance you felt you were under even before the arrest and the protest and the violence?
No, surveillance was from the day he was detained.
Okay.
But the witch hunting process started almost a year ago. As you mentioned when you started this, the character assassination of Sonam started about a year ago. Anti-national and Pakistani agent and ISI agent and all of that. Then from August, there was CBI that came, on the pretext of fact-finding. And they dug up everything and they found nothing amiss. But they were spreading rumors like FCRA violation, and there was no FCRA violation because we showed very clearly that the money that has come in is for services that we have given, research services to the foreign clients, which is a matter of pride for an Indian university. Even if you look at the detention order, the words and terms that are used are straight from the troller's mouth. So this is something that was very strange to see, that a year ago, whatever the trollers were spreading, despite that having been fact-checked and denied, still appears in detention order. A case in point is when Sonam gave an interview and he was asked if Kargil wants to go to Kashmir, what are his views about it? And he just, he mentions that if it is one or two people, then we cannot say anything. But if the entire region wants to go, then people should be allowed to go where they're happy. And if Kargil wants to go to Kashmir, it should be looked into. And he said that is why we have terms like referendums or plebiscites, And the whole thing got misinterpreted as Sonam is talking about plebiscite for Kashmir. And this happened in April last year, 2024. And by May and June, there were several fact checks that happened, I think including Quint.
Yes.
And everybody denied and proved that Sonam was not talking about plebiscite of Kashmir. And you'll be amazed to see that in this detention order, that forms one of the, reasons for his detention.
So a video that has been fact-checked as something being taken out of context has made it to the detention order.
Yes.
In the detention order, there are lots of grounds mentioned for detention. Like the video that you mentioned, there are several videos like these mentioned in the detention order to justify his arrest under NSA. they have given timestamps of allegedly incriminating quotes from the videos whose links they have given. One is a video in which they claim that he asked people to self-immolate. One is a video in which he has made references allegedly to the protests and the upheaval in Nepal and Bangladesh. But you have refuted most of these videos, and you have said that these are either misleading or they have selectively chosen certain quotes to make it look like he has instigated people.
So first of all, there are 22 videos mentioned in the entire detention order. So 9 pertain to Sonam's interviews and talks. 9 are about random events that have happened by people who he doesn't even know. And those are ascribed to being his supporters, and they are doing it on his instigation. And 4 videos that make the main part of the detention order were not even given to him till 23rd of October.
Which is almost
7 p.m. A month after, and just a day before the advisory board meeting. So it was an incomplete detention order. And when we wrote about it in our counter, they have not even addressed it in the reply to the counter that they have just submitted. So it's a violation of NSA that if you do not give complete grounds of detention, then the case can be dismissed of NSA. But they haven't even come to that. But let me break it down for you. So Arab Spring mention happened in 8th of June 25, and that too, it started off as an example that Sonam was giving after the talks were not very successful in May, where the leaders went to the MHA, and instead of talking about 6th schedule or statehood, they were just talking about some domicile or employment issues. So Sonam does this weekly podcast in Ladakhi. It's called Achon Insta, which is Bade Bhai Ke Man Ki Baat. And he gives the example. He starts with how Mahatma Gandhi, when he was fighting against the British for Indian independence, he had to go through unshans and padyatras and jail and get beaten up, but he continued the fight and finally it was victorious. Then he gives the example of Sri Ramalu, that when Andhra Pradesh was not given as a state by Mr. Nehru, so he fasted for 55 days and he died, and then Andhra Pradesh was formed. And then he gives the third example of Bouazizi. But immediately after that, he says, but we don't have to follow Bouazizi, which is the Arab Spring type of a thing, because we have for the last 5 years been following the peaceful way of protesting, and we can continue to do that in the Gandhian spirit. So this is the complete video. But what has made it to the detention order and flashed across media, and people like Arnab Goswami have really lapped it up, is that it is about he's instigating Arab Spring kind of a thing, and that happened in 8th of June. They have paraphrased that he added if the government does not give statehood, which is not what he's saying. This is the translator trying to put words into his mouth, and he's saying he proposed self-immolation by Ladakhis, which he has never done.
So that part does not make it to the detention order at all. You're saying that the part in which he mentions Arab Spring, that has made it to the detention order. But when you scroll further down where he says that we must not resort to movements like that, that doesn't make it to the order.
Yeah, and also Nepal, Bangladesh. Now coming to this Nepal, Bangladesh, this was referring to 10th September. Again, not just before the violence happened on 24. So it did not lead to that. So 10th September, there were series of talks that were happening when they started the Anshan, and some people also gave talks. So one of the speakers before him spoke about change that happens, and he gave the example of Nepal, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. And after him, Sonam was speaking, and he referred to that speaker and said, we heard of change happening through that. And again he says, but that is not how we will do through this. So they have removed that he is referring to a speaker, So in both the cases, he was neither referring to Arab Spring kind of a thing, nor this. He was saying that we need not do this, and that somebody else has said this. And coming to Gen Z, I have never heard him use these words ever in his vocabulary. Our generation, I don't think we even use these words. Only after this came, I was going through and I found out I belong to Gen X apparently. So it does not part of his vocabulary. And again, this reference to this video as having incited, the Gen Z kind of, he's, instigated the Gen Z. First of all, this video pertains to PTI's interview at 5 p.m. on 24th, after it had happened. And it's the reporter who asked him that, do you think this is a Gen Z kind of a Nepal thing? Then he says, I don't know, मुझे पता नहीं है. He says, मुझे पता नहीं है, लेकिन कभी ऐसा नहीं हुआ है, and I hope it never happens again. And he said, in fact, youth were never part of these protests ever. Never he has asked anybody to self-immolate. He said he would fast unto death. And why his life is small, for what, is because if the government is going back on its word, they won an election based on this, and they are going back on this word, then maybe his life is a small price to pay for Mother India, so that lies are not repeated in future. And another thing they mentioned, that he is encouraging people to go for pen down strikes. Yep. So the point is, what's wrong with it? That's another Mahatma Gandhi's way of non-cooperation. To tarnish his image, that he went to Pakistan. I accompanied him to that conference. Yeah. I belong to, my ancestors belong to erstwhile undivided India, Lahore. So when this invitation came, I told him I would like to go to Pakistan also, where my ancestors come from, and it's a climate conference. And we both went, and we were keynote speakers, and a lot of other Indians were invited, like Sunita Narayan ji and Harjeet Singh ji, and not all of them are anti-nationals, for heaven's sake. But the interesting thing is, that has not made it to the detention order. So it was a very interesting way the whole thing was done. The baseless accusations were just used by trollers and mass media trollers like Arnab Goswami to create a smoke screen, to character assassinate. Violence erupted, and that happened on a site which was different from where Sonam was doing his unshin. People like Arnab Goswami and Anand Ranganathan went on prime time and said that Sonam is a coward and he ran away. But he did not run away from the site. He first of all appealed to the youth through his social media handles to not engage in violence. He condemned it. And then at the risk of his own life, he went up to the podium and stopped the unshin at the risk of his own life, and you could hear the gunshots happening when he's talking and asking the youth to not do it. And he tried to contain the situation, but then because it had gone out of control, he had to be rescued from the site.
In the week of the violence and his subsequent arrest, there were several videos which were propagated and popularized by the BJP IT cell. Several of these videos were fact-checked thoroughly by most fact-checkers, including us. But despite that, these videos still lie on these handles. They continue to get traction, they continue to get views. And a certain kind of narrative gets built in the minds of anybody who's consuming them. Do you think an entire machinery was unleashed against Mr. Sonam Wangchuk and you when the violence happened?
Of course, right from the DSP who made these allegations in a press conference on 26th, to shutting down internet in Ladakh so that we could not, lot of media houses were calling me for our side of the story. We were denied that. And physically, when BBC and others were trying to come, NDTV and all, they were not being allowed physical access to come to Hayal. So that's when I decided to come, and luckily I could. Otherwise, I don't think our side of the story could have reached the country and damage would have been done for a common person. And I was just thinking that it takes a Supreme Court order for me to go and meet him and get the detention order. Till 7th I hadn't got it. And Supreme Court is not easy for a common person to avail of. We were very lucky that stalwarts like Kapil Sibal and Tankhaji decided to work for us pro bono. And Sonam had the credibility that, there were people who wanted to fight for him. But can you imagine if this happens to a common person in India? I mean, he or she has no recourse. If you don't have fame or money, where is the recourse? You can just, languish with all these fake narratives. And the next war is war of narratives. It's not anymore world wars with guns and bombs.
Is that how you see the TV media's role in the coverage when his arrest happened? A war of narratives.
Yeah, so that's a very strange thing that we are experiencing these days, which I am experiencing, this extreme polarization. It's either your identity is a party, like you're either a BJP or a Congress, or it is such binaries. Everybody is trying to propagate a certain narrative. But in Sonam's case, I was very happy to see that most people were not using it to push their agendas, but were genuinely trying to uphold the truth as they perceived or saw it.
You recently tweeted about abusive language on social media. Have you been through any such experiences ever since his arrest?
So, see, I am a student of the Vedas and Upanishads and Sanskrit and the Bhagavad Gita, and I teach the Gita and Upanishads in the light of Sri Aurobindo. And Sanskrit, it'll be interesting for you to know, does not have a bad word in it. There are no abusive explicitives there in Sanskrit. And so those who claim themselves, and all these IDs which uses abusive language, call themselves Sanatanis and Deshbhakt and have Sanskrit shlokas on their displays. So it pains me as a practicing Hindu that is this the Hinduism that you're portraying to the world? I mean, on one hand, you want to become a Vishwa Guru, and this is the aspect of Hinduism of hatred, of intolerance, of being partisanal, of using expletives, bad language. There is no, they're not upping their logic, but they're only upping their bad words and this thing. So I found it extremely strange that those who call themselves followers of Hinduism are using these kinds of words. It is not certainly doing a good job to this image of Hinduism that India is trying to build. And I feel saddened that this was not the Hinduism that our sages and rishis spoke about.
The term anti-national being used for Sonam Wangchuk did not go right by a lot of people. You yourself have tweeted that a person who has made solar homes for Jawans, a person who has invented ice stupas to save your environment, is being called an anti-national. What does it make you feel when somebody like a Sonam Wangchuk gets called an anti-national?
Again, it is motivated and it is paid to be said that, because whoever uses his mind a little bit, both Sonam and I have a lot of opportunities to shift to any country in the world and to make a great living. We chose to be in India because we felt that every ounce of our energy has to go to uplift this great nation. And somebody who has been, as you said, making shelters for the Indian Army, which they've been using. And it's right from the soldiers to the generals. And in our university, we tell our students that our aim is not for you to get certificates and go to Dubai or London or New York. If you go back to your village and make it a smart village, or, revitalize agriculture and all of that, then you are our stars. So somebody working at the grassroots level of India and innovating, and whose videos on boycotting Chinese products went viral, who is cannot be an anti-national. But because he is also an environmentalist, he is aware of the fact that a Himalayan glacier will not see ki if I should melt into India or Pakistan or China. He's the one to point out first that China is taking away land of Ladakh. So how can he be an anti-national? But that does not mean that if you're working for a particular glacier, which also waters China, then you're an anti-national because you're benefiting China. So this is the difference between evolved and an educated mind versus minds which are swayed by narratives. First of all, the detention order says that he did unilaterally the unshins and all of that. So through your platform, I would like to tell everybody that Sonam is never interested in any positions. He was not even in the apex body as the member. There was some leaders stepped down in May, and he was in June or July, he was nominated and he accepted it. But then the MHA said that he should not come, you should not bring him for the talks. And which also he was fine. He said, you go for talks, I will continue my unshin here. There is just stonewalling, which is not the right way in a democracy. You could always give reason. We can always disagree. And we are mature enough and adults to understand that you may have your compulsions and we will respect it. But just a black box decision or, a stonewalling without a reason or, bulldozing, it's not the way.
But before all the stonewalling began, Mr. Wangchuk was very vocal about several initiatives of the central government. He was being approached by ministers, BJP leaders, governors of Ladakh, the Ladakh administration for several initiatives. He very much campaigned for the Prime Minister's Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav campaign. He was receiving accolades for several of his initiatives at the hands of BJP leaders and ministers of other states, etc. Before the stonewalling happened, there was all that. When, where and how do you think the stonewalling began?
Yeah, he was the poster boy. And because the innovations that we did were game changers in everything that India was aspiring for. If we talk about 2050 carbon neutral India, then eco-responsive houses are the way forward, where we make homes which stay at +20 when it is -20 without any heating. So it doesn't generate any carbon. Or the learning by doing, experiential, contextual education, which we are ahead even than the best schools in the world. So yes, we were being approached by the government to take these initiatives forward. The whole thing changed when he started becoming vocal about the democratic rights of the citizens of Ladakh, because it is a 75-year-old demand. And when finally it was made a UT, there was protection was taken away, which was 6th schedule.
He also supported the abrogation of Article 370.
Because the fine print was only visible a couple of days later. It was assumed that if Ladakh got UT, it would be with legislature and with 6th schedule, because those were the manifestos items, so it wasn't even people. So when the first news came, he I think tweeted about it and welcomed it, because it was assumed by everybody that it would be with legislature and protection, but only hit people later that it wasn't so. And that's when he started very gently telling the government. But I think it should not have taken 5 years to resolve this issue. The wound has festered now to a point that it is more difficult to heal than if it is when it just shows up. So that is when it changed.
How do you think he really is in prison right now? How are his spirits?
See, a prison cannot be a good place for anybody, and least of all for somebody who is so curious and always wanting to learn and do things. But every week that we meet, I think we keep each other's spirits up. And as individuals also, we are very hopeful and optimist people. So that's helping. And I have a huge belief in the divine hand in everything. So I know that it has come for a purpose, for a reason, and at the right time, the right thing will happen. But that does not mean that you don't do anything about it. So last 2 months, I have been camped in Delhi, and it's easier to travel to Jodhpur every week. From there, I'm handling the matters of Hayal via Zoom and addressing things like the summons from the IT departments and all of that. And Sonam is, I think, using his time to reflect, to read, to think, to plan. So it's like what the rest of the, what is it said? What people call the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. So I think we are like those caterpillars right now, waiting to be born anew. And it's not the end of the world. We'll be born anew and continue to serve the motherland and the country through our work in education and environment.
Ma'am, thank you so much for giving your time, and thank you so much for joining me on Badi Badi Baatein. Thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.